Hey fellow babies, welcome back to Pachter Factor on SIFTD.net. Those of you who are Patreon patrons or YouTube subscribers, thank you. You are keeping Shane afloat and allowing us to continue to bring these to you. If you are a patron, thank you. But even if you're not, or if you are, either way, if you're whoever you are watching, please try to remember to link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. That's a freebie. If you have Amazon Prime, you are eligible. If you haven't bothered with Twitch, go ahead and log on to Twitch to set up a Prime account. You can link the two together, and Amazon pays Shane. So that's a freebie. You can support this show just by clicking 3 times. There are instructions on how to do that in the show description below. From SIFTD, from Jonathan Sasson. What are your overall thoughts on Summer Games Fest, not E3 2025? Did any company signal any major shifts in strategy? Were there any announcements or absences that stood out as surprising or particularly telling? Okay, I was not impressed, and I want to separate my lack of being impressed with the effort that went on at Summer Games Fest. I don't think that it is the fault of the organizers. They are captive to whatever content is out there. But it really could have been renamed Indie Game Fest, and not E3 is an accurate description because there just wasn't anything big there. So it's all indie all the time. I mean, there were 1 or 2 or 3 major games announced. Lots of Asian publishers had big games, so again, let's not diss Capcom, they're great. I think Sony in particular has been on a real long, slow death roll. I think they made a strategic error several years ago, all live services all the time. And, we saw what happened with Concord. We saw what happened with Jade Raymond's game. Sony, I think, has completely lost its way. And, while they're so busy trying to, be like everybody else and do live services, they have not been paying attention to, getting their bigger franchises out. But, nothing really surprising at Summer Game Fest. I don't care about young 007. I found out later he's supposed to be 26. In the first James Bond book, he was 31. Do I really give a shit about a guy who's 5 years younger than the first time he appeared? Maybe they can do an interesting prequel story, but I'm not seeing anything at not E3 that makes me want to just rush out, buy a console. We know people are going to buy a console to play Grand Theft Auto. I didn't see anything that got me excited. So not Jeff Keighley's fault. It's the cumulative collective fault of the publishers that they have just not bothered to try to get their act together and publish content. And to be fair, we saw this happen probably late 2000s, 2008-9 with Activision when they kind of drifted down into making Call of Duty and nothing else. They had Overwatch for a few years. I guess they had Destiny for a few years, but they really don't have any games, and it's been like that for a long time. I would have expected to see more from Microsoft. They're okay, not great. I would have expected to see more from Sony. Okay, not great. Nintendo's the one that's actually got content. The games industry has lost its way. We've gotten the Activision model of one giant hit a year and then fill in occasionally with good Blizzard content and kind of have some recurring revenue from King, and everybody's trying to emulate that. So the recurring revenue side, that's what Sony wants to be. So does Ubisoft, and they suck at it. Sony sucks at it. Take-Two is pretty good with Grand Theft Auto Online. EA is pretty good with Apex and all the Ultimate Team games. So they've got recurring revenue there. But not every game lends itself to that type of experience. And the people who can develop that type of experience have a different skill set than the people that make console games. Sony hasn't figured that out yet. So they hire one of the best console developers of all time, Jade Raymond, and tell her to make a live services game, and she doesn't know how to do it. Vince Zampella figured it out at Respawn, and it was like a very pleasant surprise that he was able to do so. Rockstar figured it out with GTA Online. It is hard to do. Activision had a different team doing Call of Duty Warzone and Call of Duty Mobile, and it took them at least 5 or 6 years after the idea to make that happen. It is not easy. Sony has lost its way. Summer doesn't seem like a big time to hear about games that the publishers are releasing just a handful each year. We're now getting things like GTA in May. Nobody seems to care. I'm surprised that we didn't get like extended gameplay on Borderlands. I mean, there's stuff coming out that nobody seems to care about. Judas was announced at the Game Awards in 23. And I think we all thought, because it looked pretty good, that it was coming out in 24. It didn't happen. Then we thought it was coming out in 25. Clearly not happening. So I have no idea what happened to that. And I like Ken Levine. I think he's a really good game maker. So I'm excited about Judas, but where is it? Do not know. I think that what we're seeing in the industry is a lot of cancellations, a lot of delays. GTA delay shouldn't really trouble anybody. It's going to be a freaking awesome game. EA shutting down Black Panther and closing the studio. That's the new normal. That we go really far along in development and then change our minds and we do something else. And if that happens frequently, you have to wonder if it's the publisher, not the studio. Like, who gets it wrong? It's the guy who says, go ahead and make that game, and then looks at it when it's ready and says it sucks. You can't make games that way. It's too expensive. So what's happening is this string of failures is making everybody more fearful of greenlighting a failure, which means that they go back to what they know, which is Call of Duty and Battlefield and sports games, and the rest of us suffer. So yeah, the Japanese are coming out with a bunch of games, and a lot of them look great. I'm not a big JRPG player. I'm not a big Slash Dragon type player, but they're coming out. We're going to get them. I did not see any announcements that were particularly telling. Absences. I'm really surprised the Rockstar guys didn't take advantage of that and just do a trailer, drop one with Jeff. I think Jeff would have paid them instead of vice versa. And I think it really would help. It would be mutually beneficial for everybody to do that kind of stuff. We were talking a few years ago, like survive until 25, and it's not happening in 25. So I really worry about the console piece of the business just drifting away to irrelevance, over the next year. And thank God for Nintendo for kind of doing a refresh, getting everybody excited again, coming out with really good content and good third-party content, and a steady stream of releases coming the next few months. Absences, what happened to lots and lots and lots of games. What happened to BioShock? They announced BioShock in, I believe, Christmas of 19. They said they confirmed that they were working on it, and we're going on 6 years, and it hasn't been announced. And I know the studio still exists, so what happened to that? Remember Michael Condrey? That was a big deal, and they shut his studio down and got rid of him. I mean, who knows? Like, they cancel stuff left and right. We never hear about stuff again. The fragmentation of the presentations worked when we had E3. Because E3 was a spectacle, and so in between the presentations, you could get the hands-on with the new Call of Duty or whatever was announced there, and you could get interviews with the developers, and you could get people, talking heads like me, doing little panel discussions or round tables or whatever, and we had a very curated experience. So it was always Microsoft on Sunday, and followed by Bethesda Sunday night, followed by Sony on Monday, followed by whatever, Nintendo on Tuesday. We always had this cadence, and we've lost that. So Microsoft still does Sunday. I mean, good for them. Sony randomly does it when they feel like it. I think it was Thursday or Friday. It was before that Sunday. Summer Games Fest was Friday, and it was underwhelming. And Summer Games Fest wasn't a big press conference. It was a couple hours. Microsoft was an hour, I think. Sony was an hour, I think. So you got these kind of tiny things. Like, it used to be fun when people cheered.
For instance, PlayStation 4 won't impose any new restrictions on the use of PS4 gamers.
that was fun. When Reggie came out, that was fun. And we don't have that spectacle. And the difference also is you, the viewer, have to kind of tune in by appointment, and you're not even sure when anything is. And so you tend to rely on, sites like ours, like SIFTD, to kind of tell you what happened. But it used to be that, my God, ABC News was there. CNBC actually ran their show from the show floor back then. So you couldn't, my mom would always ask me where I was during E3. It's the only time she ever acknowledged she knew what I did for a living. And that just doesn't happen anymore. So I think that the industry allowed itself to become much, much less relevant by allowing these kind of fragmented conferences to happen. UB does their own thing, Nintendo does its own thing more frequently, but at a different time. EA used to do an event, not anymore. They just, and then beside the press conferences, all these companies used to meet with investors and kind of have a reason to tell us how well things were going. And so they had an incentive to get their act together by that first week in June and tell us how great things were. No more incentive, no more investment angle, no more news angle, no more spectacle. There's just no point. Where it used to be kind of wait in line and get excited and go see, all the people. And I personally love Doug Bowser. People couldn't even pick him off the street. He can walk down the street unmolested. Reggie can't. And the difference in celebrity is not that Doug's a bad guy and Reggie's gregarious. It's that Reggie was on stage every year, and legitimate fans know who he is. I mean, I would say legitimate fans know who Doug Bowser is too, but you wouldn't casually see, Doug Bowser at a conference. You would see Reggie at a conference and his face plastered all over the news. So I think that the industry cut itself deeply by cutting out the spectacle. And I think the spectacle was worth infinite value, and they just blew it. The industry saved 20, 30, 50 million bucks not putting on the E3 conference and lost hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of goodwill. So I think it was just dumb. Thanks, fellow babies, for joining us on this week's Pachter Factor. If you are a Patreon patron or a YouTube subscriber, thank you. You're keeping us afloat. If you are either of those or not, please check out the instructions in the show description below and link your Amazon Prime account to your Twitch Prime account. You have to redo that once a month. So if you haven't done it in a while, then that means a month has passed. Please do it. It's free. Amazon pays Shane. You don't get charged anything. You already paid for it. So you're just reallocating your Amazon dollars to Shane, and that's really nice of you.